Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Kelly Stewart, also known as Kelly in Vegas. Today I'm joined by Marco in Vegas, Marco D'Angelo. Marco and I are going to talk some NFL season win totals. I got a sneak peek at some of these, and Marco, and I think I need to run to the sportsbook and bet some of these because I really agree with you. We're using some of our buddies over at the Westgate, their lines. First, let's go with the San Francisco 49ers, under 8.5 wins here. I made a big star on my paper for a reason because I absolutely agree with you on this one. I wasn't sold. The 49ers won 4 of their last 5. Everybody's like, 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, they're going to save us. Tell me why you like the under.
Actually, they won their last 5 in a row. And those teams, Kelly, 3 of them were teams that were done. You had Houston that was out of the playoffs, Deshaun Watson hurt, lost for the season. Tennessee was struggling. Chicago, we know how bad the Bears were last year. So those 3 wins mean nothing. Well, then people look and say, well, yeah, but they beat Jacksonville and they beat the Rams, 2 playoff teams. They didn't have any reason to play those games. Jacksonville had nothing to play for. In the Rams, they rested starters. They didn't care. So I'm not jumping on the Jimmy G bandwagon, and this number is all hype. You can't put a team at 8.5 wins. They're not going to do it. You got a couple other things to look at. You've got a second-year head coach. Last year, Kyle Shanahan. First year, a lot of teams didn't know what he was going to run and the offense and everything that he was going to go with. And Jimmy Garoppolo, at the end of the season, you really didn't have a lot of film on him. Now you've got film on both the coach and the quarterback. Let's see how they do whenever teams are game planning for them and really do need the games. I love this one under 8.5. And you know what? This season could start out real tough for the 49ers. They start the season with 3 out of 4 on the road. If they get off to a 1-3 start, it can just snowball.
I like it. Next up, Dallas over 8.5 wins. You're getting on the Dak Ezekiel train. No more Dez Bryant, locker room issues, anything else. Jerry Jones has been pretty vocal this offseason, so tell me why you like the Dallas over.
Well, this is a team that managed to get 9 wins last season. And think about what they went through. First of all, Dak had a huge regression last year, and everybody was saying, oh, the first year was a fluke. Well, maybe it was a fluke, but what it was is he didn't have Elliott in the backfield for 6 games. Dak Prescott was the rookie of the year 2 years ago. In my opinion, really, it was Elliott that was the rookie of the year. It was because of his running ability that set up the pass. I've always said, you have a good running game, it's going to make an average quarterback good, and it's going to make a good quarterback great. And that's what ended up happening with Dak. Whenever he wasn't there for the 6 games, they're stacking the line, forcing him to throw the football, and they had the problems. Also, what happened when you didn't have the running game going, they couldn't sustain drives. So it put that Dallas Cowboy defense back on the field for longer times of possession during the game. They were losing the time of possession battle, and it made the Dallas defense look worse. Now you're going to have Elliott back for the full season, barring injuries. I think you see the Cowboys come back to what we saw 2 years ago, and I think 8.5 is a sweet number. I'm going over.
I like it. A couple of bets that we can make here in Vegas, and some of you guys can probably make offshore. Yes, no bets to make the playoffs. Atlanta, yes, minus 130 to win the NFC South, or I'm sorry, the NFC South. I don't necessarily love this. Tell me why you think the Falcons are an easy sell here.
I know people are down on the Falcons because everybody's high that New Orleans played so well last year. Carolina, you never know which Carolina you're going to get. But this is an Atlanta team that went to the Super Bowl and should have won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They overcome the Super Bowl loser jinx last year and still made the playoffs. And remember, in that Philadelphia game, they were 1 play away from going to the NFC Championship game. So just to make the playoffs, you got a veteran team. You got Matt Ryan. They got Julio Jones re-signed, happy, back in camp, everything good there. And they got another wideout for Matt Ryan. Calvin Ridley was signed, was their #1 draft pick. And then their next 3 draft picks went to the defensive side of the football, which that defense last year, if you look at Atlanta, 5 of their last 7 opponents to end the season last year, they held to 17 points or less. This offense, good running game, good passing game. I'm taking the Falcons to make the playoffs.
All right, and one I like here, Baltimore, yes, plus 110. They're in the AFC North. I'm not sold on the Steelers. Sorry about that one, but I'm not sold on your Steelers this year. And then you get to play the Bengals twice and the Browns twice. Like, yes, plus money.
Yeah, I agree 100% here. My Steelers, this is the situation with them this year, and this is why I like Baltimore, because if the Steelers slip, it's going to be Baltimore that wins the division, so they're into the playoffs. it all comes down to Ben Roethlisberger. You got to keep him healthy. And unfortunately for the Steelers, he's missed games every year for the last several years. So that's always a concern. The defense has holes in it for the Steelers. They're going to have to outscore opponents. Baltimore, this is a big year for Flacco. He's got 2 years left on his contract. He needs to have a big year because Lamar Jackson is in the wings. That crowd in Baltimore will be chanting for the backup. Everybody loves the backup quarterback. But Baltimore was a 9-7 team last year, and they lost 2 games at the end of the season that cost them the playoffs. Last play of the game to the Steelers, and then the last game of the season to the Cincinnati Bengals, who played spoiler for them. And this is still a team that had 9 wins. And they had a horrible offensive stat numbers for the season. Flacco improves. Remember, he had the bad back at the beginning of the season last year. I think Baltimore makes the playoffs at plus money. I think it's a steal.
All right, last but not least, San Francisco kind of ties into your under 8.5 wins here, but you got to lay a pretty penny here. Minus 220 for the no that they don't make the playoffs.
I think it's stealing. I generally don't like to take chalk, but this one is absolutely stealing in my opinion. I don't see how they make the playoffs. Not with all the other teams in the NFC. Not going to happen. I'm going no.
All right, good stuff from Marco D'Angelo. Tuesday is always $2 Tuesdays, and you can get the hottest handicapper at WagerTalk's best bet for just $2.